In the final days of 1998, as winter blanketed northeast China, engineers at an aircraft manufacturing plant in Shenyang gathered around a new product of cooperation and ambition, a newly assembled fighter jet based on the Russian Su-27Sk. It was the first of its kind produced within China, and with its new designation, the J-11, it represented a major stride toward self-reliance in aerial defense. By 2006, a total of 105 J-11A fighters had been delivered and deployed. These aircraft were distributed among 7 different divisions of the Air Force, and for a time they formed the core of China's air superiority efforts. Yet the excitement surrounding their introduction soon gave way to a more sobering reality. From the outset, integrating these advanced platforms into everyday military use proved far more challenging than anticipated. Maintenance routines quickly grew burdensome. Ground crews at southern air bases often worked in sweltering heat and humidity, inspecting critical engine components inside narrow air intakes using only handheld flashlights. A single overlooked crack or foreign object could lead to in-flight engine failure, placing both the aircraft and its pilot at serious risk. Each J-11A was powered by the AL-31F engine, a sophisticated and costly piece of machinery valued at several million United States dollars per unit. These engines required not just technical skill but intense vigilance. The aircraft demanded the regular application of 19 different specialized oils, each measured with pharmaceutical precision. Any deviation in mixture or quantity risked compromising the integrity of key systems. In tropical environments, the aircraft's insulation degraded rapidly. Radar malfunctions became common, and electronic subsystems often reacted unpredictably. The issue was compounded by a heavy reliance on imported components. Of the more than 15,000 parts that made up each aircraft, a significant number were sourced from Russia. Many of these parts were not only expensive but also increasingly difficult to obtain. One of the most persistent challenges was the engine overhaul cycle. Due to material and structural weaknesses, each AL-31F engine required a full maintenance cycle after only 300 flight hours. This was no minor task. Each overhaul involved dismantling dozens of components, removing over 70 bolts and reassembling with extreme precision. The smallest misalignment could have dangerous consequences. To keep the fleet operational, ground personnel frequently had to rotate parts between aircraft. When resources were limited, a functioning engine might be shared among several jets. Missing tools or even small items like cloth rags triggered immediate alarms. Entire teams were known to drop to the floor to search for lost objects, as any foreign item left inside the aircraft could cause catastrophic damage. There were incidents. On one occasion, an aircraft suffered mid-air damage because a screw had not been properly fastened during maintenance. The result was a formal disciplinary action involving the entire squadron's technical staff. These were not isolated cases but part of a recurring pattern of intense pressure and overwork that defined the J-11 as early service life. Performance and training exercises only added to the concern. During a 2005 military drill in the Northwest Desert, the J-11A went head-to-head with the domestically produced J-10. Despite its superior radar equipment and heavier design, the J-11A was unable to outperform its lighter opponent. Pilots reported continuous warning signals in their cockpits and expressed frustration over the aircraft's inability to detect, track, or engage enemy targets effectively. The onboard radar, an older model known as the N001E, employed a mechanically scanned antenna with limited reach. Its detection range against enemy fighters barely exceeded 100 kilometers, and its pairing with the R-27 missile, a weapon designed for long-range engagement, proved largely ineffective. Pilots began referring to the R-27 as an unguided rocket due to its poor accuracy. Compounding the issue, the J-11A lacked integration with China's airborne early warning platforms, meaning that even when advanced support was available, the aircraft could not take full advantage of it. These vulnerabilities became glaringly apparent in international training exercises. In 2010, during joint drills in Turkey, the J-11A suffered a startling 8-to-1 loss ratio against F-4E Phantom fighters, aircraft several decades older. 5 years later, in simulated engagements with Thailand's Gripen fighters, the J-11A once again came up short, losing 4-0. Pilots noted that their radar systems displayed more static interference than actual targets and that the aircraft's electronic systems lagged behind by at least 2 generations. Behind these operational shortcomings lay a deeper issue. When China initially secured the rights to assemble the J-11 from Russia in the mid-90s, it did not receive the full spectrum of engineering documentation. Critical processes, particularly those involving engine design and avionics, were left out. The Russian side had calculated that China would remain dependent on their technical support for at least a decade. Yet, despite the setbacks, Chinese engineers began finding workarounds. In the absence of advanced forging techniques, composite materials were used to redesign and lighten the airframe, reducing its weight by more than 1.5 tons. When the original powder metallurgy turbine disc failed durability tests, factory technicians relied on simple but repetitive experiments to extend the engine lifespan from 900 hours to over 2,000. The shift toward domestic production occurred in several phases. During the initial batch in the late 1990s, China received fully manufactured parts from Russia and focused solely on assembly. By the early 2000s, the second wave included rough parts that were finished locally. Between 2002 and 2004, Chinese workers began manufacturing the fuselage on their own. Only the engines and radar systems remained imported. After 2005, those components too were gradually replaced with domestic alternatives, and the J-11B variant emerged with a new radar system and integrated data link. When the third batch of J-11s passed inspection in 2003, Russian observers were reportedly stunned. In just 7 years, China had achieved a level of self-sufficiency that had taken others more than 2 decades. Not long after, the remaining order for nearly 100 aircraft was cancelled, and focus shifted entirely to developing the domestically built J-11B. The legacy of the J-11A, however, is not just one of technological transformation. It is a story shaped by the perseverance of people who worked behind the scenes, mechanics, technicians, and support crews who lived in close proximity to the aircraft day and night. In certain northern regiments, second-shift personnel ate and slept in rooms converted from cockpit compartments. Power trucks remained fully powered around the clock to ensure jets could be airborne within 5 minutes of receiving an order. Even during national holidays, these teams remained on duty. On Lunar New Year's Eve, they gathered to make dumplings beside the aircraft while watching television programs in the background. As the clock approached 10 in the evening, duty officers across the facility turned off the lights in unison to conserve energy for the next potential scramble. Each flight involved the coordinated work of more than 50 individuals, from radar specialists to engine crews. When a J-11B lifted off the runway, it carried with it not just weapons and fuel, but the collective effort of a community dedicated to safeguarding the skies. In 2020, the final batch of Su-27Sk aircraft was formally retired. Most of the 105 J-11A fighters were reassigned to training schools, where they continue to serve as instructional platforms for aspiring pilots. Their airframes, now aged and worn, carry the legacy of a time when ambition outpaced infrastructure, and determination filled the gaps left by limited technology. On quiet evenings at air bases across China, some mechanics still reach out to touch the aircraft by its tail number. Pilots, watching new generation jets like the J-16 streak across the sky, recall the J-11A with both frustration and pride. While these aircraft may no longer represent the cutting edge of aerial warfare, they remain enduring symbols of a nation's path toward building an air force capable of standing on its own. Their story is not just about machinery or technology. It is about resilience, adaptation, and the countless individuals who carried the weight of ambition, one flight, one repair, and one mission at a time.